Help wanted, a new leader for Jackson County, opening up the purse strings for 18th and Vine. One's too many, but 109? How to respond to a massive hike in Kansas City homicides. And your annual handy-dandy guide to the upcoming legislative sessions now getting underway in Kansas and Missouri. Hello, I'm Nick Haynes. Those stories and more coming up on the first edition of Kansas City Week in Review for 2016. We are delighted you're with us, renewing their commitment to keeping you up to date on the most pressing weighty issues facing our metro. The host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. From the pages of the Pitch newspaper, Steve Vokrot. The senior writer for The Call, Eric Wesson. And Kansas City Star reporter, columnist and blogger, Dave Helling. The Help Wanted sign goes out in Jackson County for a new leader. That after Mike Sanders abruptly calls it quits while you were drinking that second glass of eggnog over the holiday.
I really want to take about a month here to spend time with my family, something I really haven't been able to do for 9 years. And I really want to focus on that. There are some great opportunities out there in the private sector. That's where I came from, was the private sector. I'm thrilled to go back to the private sector. The opportunities are out there, but I don't really want to finalize anything or really even start those conversations until I'm cleanly away from the county. So I'll begin those conversations.
Sanders has served as Jackson County executive for 9 years, while the conversation now turns to who will replace him as the county's leader. Not everyone is satisfied with what they've heard about his reasons for departing the office so abruptly. He wants to spend more time with family. Is there more to it than that, Steve Vokrot?
Well, we don't know, at least not publicly. The timing was a little odd, and he's had a tough year. All the problems with the jail has, I would imagine, taken a toll on him. There was a separate FBI investigation, if you will, about a contract that tied to some politically connected folks out in Jeff City. So it was a tough year for him, and he was going to face some tough challenges in 2016. But as far as whether we know for sure whether anything factored into it beyond his desire to spend time with his family and that realization just a few months after he got elected for a third term, time will tell.
I want to spend more time with family, but it's become a cliche, Steve. Yes. But if you've ever taken a new job, it actually takes you more time than the one you were in. However much high stress that job might be, he would be spending less time with family if he took a new job, wouldn't he?
Well, that very well may be, depending on what that new job is. Having spent time with him, Nick, over the years, I know how committed he is to his two sons. They're very active in sports, and the county executive is very much engaged with his family. Steve is right that the one thing that does sort of catch you up short here a little bit is the timing of this. It happened so quickly, a three-term county chief executive pulling the plug just a little time into his third term. It does raise your eyebrows a little bit. Steve outlined some of the issues that he's faced in the job of late, but at this point I think you have to take him at his word, not really having anything else to fall back on here, that he truly does want to spend more time there.
Well, could it really be about money? Because he could be in the private sector and earn so much more money, Eric Wesson, as a private practice attorney than he was ever earning in public service there in the low 100s of salary.
Yeah, probably money could be a factor in it if that was what's behind all of this. But I agree with Steve, both Steves here. What was really going on with it, and I know one of the things that people said originally was that he would come in, he would run for Senate, he was going to run against Blunt. That was one of the rumors that was out. But he would always say, no, I want to spend time with my boys. And when you talk to him privately, he's always talking about his boys playing baseball and how excited he would be about watching that. So Frank White was always a subject of he was going to come in, he would resign, Frank White would take the seat, he would run for Senate. But who knows what really goes on behind closed doors.
Because the story now is who will replace Mike Sanders. And so we just heard of the name Frank White, who's somebody, he's the former, Royals player, but he's only been on the Jackson County legislature barely 5 minutes. Why is he now being touted as the replacement for Mike Sanders, Dave
Well,
Helling?
first, let's just get the mechanism straight. Fred Urbanus is the acting legislator, and it's my understanding that he will step aside next Monday. He'll be there basically a week, and then they'll appoint Frank White. That he's the odds-on favorite to be the interim county executive until the end of 2016. There will be an election in November of 2016 for the replacement of the last 2 years of the Sanders term. I talked to Frank White the day after Mike Sanders decided to leave and asked him if he thought he was ready. He said he thought he was. But you do get the sense that he may not completely understand the increased job duties and responsibilities of the county executive. It isn't like being a county legislator, let me tell you. It's a full-time job, and the word is that White wants to, in essence, try it out for a while and then see if he's interested and is up to the task, and then he would run in the August primary and the November general. If he decides to run, he is the odds-on favorite by far. I mean, he's well
Even though
known.
he has very little political experience.
He's extraordinarily well known, Nick. He played Major League Baseball for the Kansas City Royals. He got more votes than Mike Sanders last time in his race. There isn't an argument that other potential candidates might be able to make that would overcome that support that Frank White enjoys, particularly for that job, which is important but not that highly visible. It's hard to mess it up a lot if you get the right people around you, and I think the argument is that Frank White would do that. We'll
The
see.
name recognition in and of itself, and a lot of people feel like the Royals did him wrong. He should be in the Hall of Fame, and there's some other things that he should be doing with the club. So just as a consolation, he would be an odds-on favorite. I wouldn't.
But if you're saying, though, that you don't have to have a huge amount of political experience, it's very difficult to screw up the job. What does that say about the job of Jackson County Executive, Steve Kraske, and what the actual executive does?
Well, it's an important job, but Dave's right. It's not an overwhelmingly complex job in terms of myriad responsibilities here. You know, there are just a few basic roles of the job. You know, what strikes me as ironic here, Nick, is that Frank White, who has so publicly collided with the Royals over the years, now will be in a position to have some control over the stadiums out there and the plight of the Royals going forward. That's just desserts in some ways for Frank White, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Let's just be very clear, too. Sly James had never served on the city council and was elected mayor. It isn't as if you have to have had some experience on an elected body to qualify for elective service. And for whatever reason, Frank White has received relatively high marks to date, that he sort of knows what's going on. You don't hear people hypercritical of him. Now, will there be other people interested in that job? You bet. Dan Tarwater, other members of the legislature might have some interest in a relatively high-paying job. So that'll have to play out. But to suggest that Frank White, because he lacks extensive political experience, is disqualified is probably wrong.
Now, speaking of people in jobs for just 5 minutes, former Wyandotte County Mayor Joe Reardon was picked less than a year ago to be the Metro's top transit official. Now he is giving up his almost $200,000 salary as head of the KCATA to become the new leader of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, where he'll replace Jim Heder. Is he not worried about being accused of job hopping on his resume, Steve Ockrott?
Well, when I started hearing that Joe was a candidate for the job, I kind of, it was a little bit of a head scratcher because he had, as you point out, was at the ATA for such a short amount of time. I would argue that being the CEO of the chamber, however, is probably a more visible job. He can have, the chamber, for probably most viewers, isn't an organization that makes a whole lot of difference in their lives. But in the political stratosphere, you can have a lot of involvement as the chair of the chamber. You can make the organization as dynamic as you want it to be. Jim Heder kind of took the chamber to a bit of a higher level with the Big Five, and Joe Reardon will be able to shape that organization in the way that he wants to. So for him, I'm sure the move was a good move. And as far as the ATA is concerned, depending on who takes over full time, that's another organization that's raising its profile and raising its clout, in part thanks to the work that Joe Reardon did,
But
even during a short time.
That's a job that pays $200,000 versus the $119,000 or so for the Jackson County Executive. Could Mike Sanders now move into the KCATA job?
Absolutely, and the KCATA probably wants him to come over there and take a look at it. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, Nick. The word I had about Joe Reardon's interest in the chamber was the chamber reached out to him to attract him to come over across the street Street and take a look at their job. So he was recruited for that position in a sense. He's a very well-known former public official here. A lot of people have very high regard for him, very highly respected. He's also known as a fairly careful public official, and that suits the Chamber of Commerce pretty well. I think the challenge for him will be to be a little more assertive, a little more aggressive about the areas he thinks the Chamber can make a difference in and speak out about those.
Just very briefly, I asked Mike Sanders about his interest in the ATA job, and he really downplayed that a lot. He said, in essence, I don't want to jump from having to manage county employees to transit employees. I've got other things in mind. My guess is he'll end up in the private legal sector, his own office, criminal defense, something like that, with an eye on returning to the political arena 5-10 years from now when his kids are grown. He might come back.
Congress, 5th District
Or Congress,
seat of Emanuel Cleaver. Yeah.
One is too many, but 109. I'm talking about homicides in Kansas City. That's a massive jump on the 81 murders recorded the year before. As we start this brand new year called 2016, what is Kansas City doing differently to respond to this escalating rate of homicides, Eric?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think that it's caught everybody pretty much off guard, and there's a baffle on what to do. I know the mayor put a commission together to look at violence, and they're going to look at domestic violence.
Which starts next week.
Which starts next week. But my thing with commissions is that they have from now until November to meet with the community, come up with some ideas, but people are still going to be getting killed in that process. So commissions give you a long-term picture, but you have an immediate problem. So what do you do about the immediate problem? And that's what people aren't addressing. The lack of drugs on the street, people arguing over the little bit of drugs that are there, people using drugs, their feelings about killing somebody are none. They have nothing to do with that, and there's not an economic base for them. They lack education. Those are the things that are leading these young men to kill other young men. They're fighting over who's selling the biggest bag of weed, and they're shooting people to eliminate the competition and to rob each other of that. So I don't know if there's an immediate fix, but I do know we have to talk about gun control in the urban core. We talk about...
Okay, but that's not something really that the city has much control over, though, Steve, because
Absolutely
the legislature
not.
has said absolutely not. Cities can't do anything about that.
No, Mayor James has been talking about this need for years now, trumpeting the need for more gun control in the inner city. He can't get it because the General Assembly down in Jefferson City deals with that. Those rural lawmakers will not give Kansas City the gun control that it wants. Couple quick thoughts. Jolie Justice, the city council woman, is going to head up the commission that Eric just alluded to, a very capable public official. Let's see what she produces. The city needs to do something here, Nick. Not only are the number of homicides up, topping 100, maybe 109 now, based on the latest numbers. That's a relatively small number. The bigger number here is the number of violent crimes taking place in Kansas City, up 12% through October of last year. That includes homicide, rape, robbery, assault. Kansas City has a problem.
Well, here at KCPT, we are delving into the issue, too. For the better part of a year, we have been tracking violent crime in Kansas City for a new documentary we're calling Our Divided City.
Police department, anybody inside? Answer up. Do it now.
Like many cities in the US, Kansas City has two stories to tell.
We want the same chance. We want the same opportunities for a job.
There's the story about the gleaming, pretty neighborhoods.
When you talk to people in Kansas City, you hear a lot about the truce divide.
A land of opportunity that's mostly white. And then there's the story about the east side of town, home to the black community.
Well, there's not a whole lot of people living around here, so many empty houses.
The disinvestment, the poverty, the violence.
New documentary, Our Divided City, coming to KCPT at the end of the month. Before it airs, we are screening the film and hosting a crime caucus, a citizen-led summit on crime at Paseo High School on Tuesday, January 19th at 6 p.m. We'd love you to be there. If you can go to kcpt.org to register your spot so we know how many people we're dealing with. We will be filming this event for broadcast. Now, next on Week in Review, Missouri lawmakers return to Jefferson City this week to begin their 2016 legislative session. It is is the last session for Missouri Governor Jay Nixon, who has spent most of the week knee-deep in floodwater. On Monday, Kansas lawmakers start their work in Topeka. Steve Kraske, a fill-in-the-blank question for you. The biggest issue facing Missouri lawmakers in 2016 is blank.
Well, I'd say ethics and improving the environment down there to make it a cleaner political system for elected officials down there. It's a mess. Everybody knows about the lack of campaign contribution limits, that lobbyists sort of rule the roost down there, that lawmakers can go from lawmaking one day to being well-paid lobbyists the next. A huge problem for the General Assembly. You get a sense there's all kinds of momentum behind this issue this year. They've been trying to change it for years. If it doesn't happen this year, Nick, it's never going to happen.
Steve Vogt, the answer to that question from you was what?
Well, it was going to be what Steve said.
Of course it was. All right.
So it might be worth mentioning what won't be an issue any longer with the Missouri General Assembly, and that's the Rams Stadium issue. It looks like that football team, which was going to try and seek some state money to help build their new stadium, looks like they want to get out of that town as soon as they can.
You know, highways, and there's no money for highways. I mean, isn't that going to be one of the big issues? Will there be toll roads on I-70 as a result of the session, or an increase in tax to pay for roads?
It's more likely that they'll try and maybe put something on the ballot, or at least reach some agreement on additional funding for roads. There seems to be some consensus even among moderate Republicans in the legislature that transportation is important. Right to work will also come up again. And you will see a lot, Nick, of sort of splashy disagreements over Planned Parenthood funding or weapons or prayer in schools, all the social issues that play into the election in 2016, particularly in a presidential year. But the actual accomplishments when we sit here in May will probably not be that many.
You know, interestingly, I saw that loosening gun laws was one of the issues that Missouri leadership wanted to do in the Missouri legislature, Republican leadership. It doesn't seem possible that you could actually loosen the laws any more than you already have in Missouri.
There's talk about allowing guns on college campuses in Missouri. There's talk about doing the same thing in Kansas, Nick. It has a lot of professors, a lot of university administrators completely up in arms, but lawmakers are taking a very serious look at it.
You know, if last year was the year of Ferguson in the Missouri legislature, where dozens of bills were filed to address that issue, though very little passed, this year may be the year of the MU protest. One bill proposed would strip college athletes from their scholarships if they fail to play a game or show up for practice. Lawmakers also trying to fire an MU professor at the center of that protest action on the Columbia campus. When the smoke clears, will anything actually happen?
The athletes bill was withdrawn because of the criticism of it, so I don't think that'll come up. But there will be a lot of discussion about broadly about campus unrest. And I wrote this story about a month ago. It will become a major issue in the governor's race. The Republicans are all talking about getting tough in the primary about college kids and campus disruption. And so, and Chris Koster will have to talk about that a little bit. Most of what we're talking about here, Nick, will be an issue in the election rather than something that's resolved by the legislature.
What are you looking out for, Eric?
I think Ferguson and police body cameras will be topics that they'll have to deal with.
That hasn't died out as an issue?
No, it hasn't. And I think the African-American leadership in St. Louis and Kansas City will make sure to push that as one of their front-running things, as well as body cameras, since Cleaver has made the money available for that.
You know, I mentioned that Kansas lawmakers begin their work on Monday in Topeka. Complete this sentence, Dave Helling. The biggest issue facing Kansas lawmakers in 2016 is blank.
The empty bank account, which continues to be an issue in Kansas. The December numbers were appallingly bad in terms of state revenue. The state is literally broke. It's out of money, and so it will have to figure out a way to deal with it. Now, will they raise taxes? There is great reluctance to do that. They went through a nightmare last year, 2015, to do that. There's no enthusiasm for that. The math may require something more than the legislature and the governor now anticipate, but they'll still have to find a way to balance the budget. One thing to keep in mind quickly, it's very unlikely the school situation will be fixed this year. The court's decision will probably be delayed past the adjournment. The block grant system versus some sort of new foundation formula is very complicated. People don't want to deal with that in an election year. 2017 is really the focus of all of this. New legislature, court decision, it's all going to be really put off until 2017.
Okay, so the budget was Dave Helling's issue. Did you have a different answer to that, Steve Okra?
Yeah, and it's like a lot of things in state government, it's related to what Dave's talking about. But I want to highlight, since this show has been on last, there's been some major issues going on with the state hospital in Osawatomie. There were some high-profile incidents that were brought to light, including a patient who raped a staffer. And the feds,
this is a mental health hospital.
Yeah, it's a state mental health hospital. There's chronically more patients than they have beds for. They're understaffed, they're underfunded, and the underfunding problem got even worse as the feds decided to suspend Medicaid funding to that facility because it was so far out of compliance in so many different respects. And there's even questions about whether the state's even going to seek recertification, and that's going to be a major discussion in the context of mental health in the state of Kansas.
Steve Kransky.
The issues in Kansas just continue to grow because of the money shortfall. You know, prison guards, a huge issue now. The lack of highway patrol officers, the basic sort of defense foundation of a state like Kansas very much in question here. Disagree a little bit with my colleague here. There are some lawmakers who expect the big ruling on school finance, the Gannon case, to come down during the session. Of course, no one knows for sure when it'll happen, but when it does, that becomes the focus of the entire session, Nick.
Eric.
Education. How are they going to educate the children? Public education. How are they going to do that without having any money?
While the state of Missouri and the state of Kansas struggle financially, is Kansas City, Missouri experiencing a financial windfall? The city council signaling its support this week to giving $18 million to the 18th and Vine Jazz District to support revitalization plans.
I think this is one of the most critical projects that the city will consider because of the history of 18th and Vine.
If you look at other entertainment areas in this entire city, we're asking for probably a smaller amount than we really should be asking for.
$18 million. What would the money be spent on, Eric?
Parking lots, some renovations that need to be done there. I think Mr. Gates is going to be building some market rate housing there, parking for when the baseball technology center comes into place. $18 million isn't a lot of money for what they need to do. You could spend that building a parking garage.
So Dave Helling, with so many other areas of the city, and we've been hearing this, there's been complaints, and certainly at the end of last year, about TIF money going to favorable parts of the city. Isn't it time to see a project on the east side of Kansas City get some funding?
Well, yes, you'll hear that argument, particularly 18th and Vine, which 20, 25 years after it was built is beginning to show some age around the corners. On the other hand, the resistance will be pretty strong. It will depend to some degree on the mechanism that they find. Do we bond this? Do we just take $18 million out of what, PIAC or whatever it is? But, you'll hear the argument that the Kansas City spends $11 million a year on the Power and Light District and will for the next 30 years. That's a big chunk of change compared to what they might want in the Power or in the 18th and Vine area. So there may be some political support for this. The East Side doesn't unanimously support spending at 18th and Vine. There are other parts to the East Side other than that entertainment district, farther south, housing, other things. It's a complicated issue. It may take several months to untangle.
But why is there such a sort of green lighting at this point from the City Council when money isn't easy to come by these days, Steve, at any level of government?
And just to be real clear here, the money has not been allocated yet. That decision has to be made down the road here. This is still very much in the conversation stage here, Nick. But, I think Dave hits it here. The 18th and Vine area sort of remains the jewel of the East Side, underappreciated. As someone who spends some time down there, it's a great time. Come on down. It does need some work, and it'll be an interesting conversation at City Hall.
Can I just say briefly? Go ahead, Eric.
It needs a developer. It needs somebody with a clear vision of what it should look like. It is too many different visions, too many different boards. It's going too many different directions. They have to have one vision of is it going to be an entertainment district or is it going to be a non-for-profit district? They gotta have a vision, and that's the problem.
Just briefly, my guess is that if they find this kind of money for 18th and Vine, it will be part of a broader package that involves capital improvements to other things in Kansas City so that you can sprinkle the money around a little bit in the city and get support from the entire city council. That's how they originally did 18th and Vine as part of the Cleaver plan. That might come up again.
Just really quickly here, and people are going to just guffaw when I say this, but there are a number of jazz clubs around the metropolitan area that have closed in the last year. 18th and Vine and the Blue Room remains sort of the focal point of the jazz community in Kansas City. And that's an important thing to maintain in the sense that that's what we're best known for, folks, whether you want that to be the case or not.
And finally, it may have been just the first week of a new year, but it was a week filled with comings and goings in this place we call home. It's a week that sees one of the Metro's most visible CEOs announce his retirement. Greg Graves will depart engineering giant Burns & McDonnell at the end of the year. Laid to rest this week, civic leader and philanthropist Landon Rowland. And The Star gets a new publisher, a 38-year-old by the name of Tony Berg, who's only been with the paper since April. It's also a massive week for the resurrected Kansas City Chiefs on a hunt for the Super Bowl and trying to win their first playoff game this weekend in more than 20 years.
Who would have predicted that one? We're in the dance, all right?
That first playoff game Saturday at 3:35 against Houston, which means if you're watching our Sunday rebroadcast, you could either be celebrating or suffering from inconsolable heartbreak. But is it just me, or is there less hoopla for the Chiefs in the playoffs than the Royals? Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain point, but I think...
this is not a sea of red around town, is it?
Yeah, and I don't really have a good explanation for why that is. I mean, that's just sort of a gut feeling I have, but I'm a Broncos fan.
Is that because of too much disappointment over the years, Eric?
Right, we've been here, we've done this. We've done this years and years and years, and they never make it past the first round, and I would be careful saying I was a Broncos fan.
I was just at Walmart locally, and it was still filled with Royals gear, and then there was barely any Chiefs gear there.
Two thoughts. There's a little bit of a hangover here from the Royals, and just very quickly, what a loss for this community, the death of Landon Rowland. What a great man he was, and he'll be so sorely missed.
Yes, thank you for that, Steve. And that is our Week in Review, this first edition of the program for 2016. Thanks to our news reviewers, and thanks to you for watching us in this brand new year. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.